I kept silent for a long time. But now I will tell you what happened that night. The night I disappeared. There are moments that slice a life into before and after. What was once ordinary suddenly turns into a fragile memory. The smell of my room, the warm glow of the desk lamp, the quiet hum of the city outside the window. I thought tomorrow would be just another day. I thought nothing could change overnight. But the truth is different. The truth is what no one dares to say out loud. It hides in the cracks of time, in stories erased from history, in whispers that vanish before they reach your ears. That night, I was an ordinary man. I went to bed in my own home, carrying nothing heavier than tomorrow's plans. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, the world I knew was gone. I found myself in a city that didn't exist yesterday. Towers of glass pierced the sky. Neon lights pulsed like veins in a body I didn't recognize. Every detail was sharp, too sharp to be a dream. And yet it couldn't be real. Could it? There was something in the air, heavy, electric, suffocating, as if the future itself was watching me. I knew I didn't belong. I knew I wasn't supposed to be here. But I didn't yet understand the law of this world, the one truth that ruled every face I saw. In the future I woke up to, people live only until 30, and then they disappear. I have stayed silent long enough. Now you will hear the story that was never meant to be told. And if you want to know everything, the secret they tried to bury, the price of youth, and what it means to outlive your time, then stay with me. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you don't miss what comes next. Because once you hear the whole truth, there is no going back. The night I vanished had ended, but the morning I awoke to was nothing like the mornings I knew. At first, I thought it was the usual blur between dream and reality, the grogginess of waking up in a strange room. But this was no dream. I wasn't in my apartment anymore. The ceiling above me stretched high, painted with a dull metallic sheen that shimmered faintly like liquid silver. The floor beneath me wasn't wood or carpet, but a smooth black surface that reflected the light like polished stone. I staggered to my feet, still half convinced I was trapped in some hallucination. Then I saw it. Through the wide opening ahead, a city revealed itself, and it was unlike anything I had ever seen. Towers of steel and glass climbed far above the clouds, their edges lined with flowing rivers of neon. Enormous bridges hung in the sky, carrying streams of silent vehicles that glowed from within. Screens as tall as buildings pulsed with moving images, numbers, symbols I didn't understand. The city wasn't alive with noise. It was alive with light. People passed by, moving in measured rhythm, as if each step was rehearsed. Their clothes were identical. Gray, minimal suits that hugged the body like a second skin, streaked with faint neon lines that pulsed in sync with their heartbeat. Men, women, even children, all bore the same expression. Calm, focused, detached. None of them seemed older than their mid-20s. I tried to speak to one. A man brushed past me, his eyes cold, scanning me for a moment before moving on without a word. Another woman glanced at me, then froze for a second too long, her gaze sharp with suspicion, before she, too, disappeared into the flow of the crowd. It wasn't just curiosity. It was something else. A quiet unease, as if they all knew I didn't belong. And then I noticed the silence. The city wasn't quiet, not truly. There were sounds everywhere, the hum of unseen engines, the faint buzz of neon, the rhythm of footsteps. But there was no laughter, no shouting, no conversation. The people didn't speak to each other at all. They moved like ghosts through corridors of light, present but absent. I pressed on, desperate for something familiar, something human. My steps carried me through a massive square at the heart of the city, where the air trembled with energy. And there, towering over the skyline, I saw it, a colossal digital screen. Its surface was pure white at first, and then letters began to burn across it in sharp crimson font. They were in English, yet the simplicity of the message made it feel alien, as though carved into my mind itself. Life limit, 30 years. The words repeated again and again, flickering across every corner of the square. Beneath them, an endless timer ticked down in glowing red numbers. I stared, frozen. The crowd moved around me as if nothing was unusual, as if this horrifying declaration was simply part of daily life. They glanced up at the screen, indifferent, before continuing their silent routines. The realization struck like a knife. Not one of them was older than 30. I felt the weight of it immediately. I was already past that line. The truth I didn't yet understand pressed on me, heavier than the tallest tower. The future had a law written not in books, but in blood and silence, and somehow I had just crossed its threshold. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the giant screen. Life limit. 30 years. The words pulsed in rhythm with the city itself, like a heartbeat broadcast into the sky. A law so absolute that no one questioned it. Yet for me, it was a death sentence written in advance. I turned away, desperate to blend into the crowd, but their stares followed me like shadows. They weren't aggressive, not yet, only puzzled, unsettled, as though they sensed something off about me. My clothes didn't match their uniform suits. My face, perhaps the lines of age, faint though they were, betrayed me. I suddenly felt exposed, naked in a society that demanded perfection. I approached a group of young men standing near a transport platform. They were waiting silently, their expressions blank. I forced a smile and asked, "Excuse me, what is this place? What year is it?" Their heads turned in eerie unison. One of them blinked, his gaze sweeping over me like a scanner. "Your accent," he said softly, almost mechanically. "Your skin. It shows anomalies." Then, without another word, he turned his back. The others followed, boarding a glowing capsule that lifted into the air and vanished among the towers. I stumbled back, heart pounding. Anomalies? They saw me as something broken. That's when she appeared. She couldn't have been more than 25, with sharp eyes that glimmered against the gray monotony around us. Her uniform was the same as the others, but she wore it differently, looser, as though she didn't care about perfection. She approached me with cautious urgency, as if she had been waiting for me all along. "You don't belong here," she whispered, her voice trembling between fear and compassion. "And if anyone else realizes it, you'll vanish before the day is over." "What is this place?" I begged. "What do you mean, vanish?" Her gaze lifted toward the colossal screen. "You've already seen it. No one lives past 30. It's the first rule. The only rule that matters." "That's impossible," I muttered. "People don't just stop living. There must be." "There is a system," she cut me off sharply. "At the end of your 30th year, you report to the Ministry of Continuance. They take you through the white doors, and no one ever comes back." Her words chilled me more than the air. "You mean they kill you?" She hesitated. "They call it transition. They say it's painless, necessary, for balance and sustainability. Everyone believes it, or at least they pretend to." Before I could answer, a sound erupted in the square, a low, humming alarm. A section of the crowd parted, forming a neat corridor. At the far end, 2 men in silver uniforms escorted someone forward. A man no older than 30, his face pale, his steps heavy. His family stood nearby, frozen between grief and obedience. No tears, no protests, just silence. The man was led toward a massive white archway at the edge of the plaza. Its surface glowed, humming like the mouth of a machine. As he entered, the doors closed with a hiss. A moment later, the light dimmed. He never came back. The crowd dispersed as if nothing had happened. No whispers, no questions, only acceptance. My stomach turned. I felt sick, angry, terrified all at once. "This is wrong," I muttered. "This can't be real." The girl touched my arm, pulling me into a narrow alley before anyone else could notice. "Keep your voice down. You're older, aren't you? You've passed the limit." I froze. My silence was enough of an answer. She exhaled shakily. "Then you're a dead man walking, and sooner or later, the system will find you." Her eyes met mine, filled with something I hadn't seen anywhere else in this cold, perfect city. Pity, and maybe hope. That was the moment I realized I was no longer just a visitor in this future. I was a threat to its law. The girl's warning echoed in my mind like a prophecy. You're a dead man walking. Sooner or later, the system will find you. We slipped back into the streets, but I could already feel it. The eyes, not just hers. The city itself was watching. Every building bore glassy panels that flickered faintly as I passed. Like they were recording me. Above, sleek black drones floated silently, their lenses scanning the crowd. I tried to steady my breath, to walk like the others, calm and robotic. But my heartbeat betrayed me. Each step felt heavier, louder. And then it happened. From the corner of the street, a silver orb detached from a building's wall. It hovered, rotated, and cast a pale red beam across my face. A sharp chime rang out, followed by a cold, mechanical voice. "Age anomaly detected. Stand still." People around me froze instantly, their expressions still blank, but their eyes darted toward me with sudden intensity. The crowd began to part, giving the orb a clear line of sight, as if trained to react without question. The girl grabbed my wrist. "Run!" We bolted through the narrow streets, weaving between streams of silent citizens who didn't interfere, only stared. The orb whirred behind us, its alarm growing louder, sharper. Then, like dominoes, every screen in the city lit up. The colossal display in the square, the smaller panels along the towers, even the glowing surfaces of the streets themselves. All of them pulsed with a single message: wanted, age violation, subject is anomalous. And then my face appeared. My face, magnified 100 times, plastered across the skyline, framed in crimson borders. I staggered mid-run, horrified. My own reflection stared down at me from every direction. The city had swallowed my identity and weaponized it against me. The girl yanked me forward. "Don't stop! They'll close the perimeter in minutes!" Sirens erupted above. Sleek black machines swooped down from the bridges, their neon eyes scanning, searching. The air filled with the thrum of engines, the hiss of metallic wings slicing through fog. We ducked into an alley, sprinting over slick pavement, my lungs burning. Shadows flickered as the drones passed overhead. I could hear the amplified voice echoing through speakers hidden in the walls. "Anomaly detected. Report immediately. Compliance ensures survival." But no one reported me. No one shouted or pointed. The citizens simply stared, their silence more chilling than any shout of betrayal. It was as if obedience was carved into their very bones. They didn't need to act. The system would act for them. My knees trembled as we ducked behind a massive steel pillar. My chest heaved, and the girl pressed her back against the wall. Her jaw clenched. "This is worse than I thought," she whispered. "You've triggered the surveillance grid. You can't stay on the surface anymore. I swallowed hard. So what now? They know my face. They know I exist. How do I hide from a world where everyone sees me as a criminal? She hesitated, glancing down the alley as footsteps approached. Not mechanical this time, but human. The rhythm was sharp, disciplined. Enforcers. Her eyes flicked back to mine. Now, you run for your life. And before I could respond, the street exploded with light. White beams cut through the shadows, scanning every inch. Voices barked orders in monotone, metallic cadence. Subject identified. Pursue. Terminate anomaly. The future had turned against me. I wasn't just an intruder here anymore. I was prey. The streets above turned into a hunting ground. White beams sliced through the fog, cutting the city into sharp angles of light and shadow. The metallic voices of the enforcers grew louder, echoing off glass and steel. Anomaly confirmed. Capture is mandatory. The girl didn't hesitate. She pulled me through a side corridor, then down a staircase that spiraled beneath the glowing streets. The air shifted, colder, damp, laced with the smell of rust and stone. "Where are we going?" I gasped. My lungs burned, each breath ragged from the chase. "Underground," she said. "It's the only place their eyes don't reach." The staircase emptied into a labyrinth of tunnels. Pipes snaked along the ceiling, dripping condensation. The walls were patched with metal sheets, graffiti scratched into their surface, fractured words, forbidden symbols. Unlike the city above, this place felt human, imperfect, messy, alive. We moved fast, our footsteps splashing through puddles. Behind us, the hum of machines faded until only silence remained. At last, we stopped before a heavy steel door. The girl tapped a sequence on its surface. A small slit opened, revealing a pair of eyes. Sharp, suspicious. "He's with me," she whispered. The door groaned open. Inside, I found myself staring at faces, real faces. Not the polished, artificial perfection of the city above, but men and women with scars, wrinkles, unruly hair. Some were young, some looked older than 30, impossibly older. My chest tightened. They were survivors. A tall man stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "You brought an outsider? He's different," the girl said quickly. "He's not from here. He's older." Murmurs rippled through the room. Dozens of eyes fixed on me, a mix of awe and suspicion. The tall man studied me, his gaze heavy. Finally, he nodded. "Follow me." He led us into a dim chamber lit by flickering screens. Dust clung to the air, and old machines hummed quietly in the corners. On the walls hung photographs, scraps of paper, fragments of data salvaged from another time. "This is the archive," he said. "The truth the ministry buried." I stepped closer, scanning the images. At first they looked ordinary, portraits of people, families, children. But then I noticed the dates, the ages, all older than 30. My stomach twisted. They survived? The man's expression hardened. They were taken. Every one of them. The ministry tells the world they transitioned. But the truth is worse. They're not gone. They're used. "Used?" I echoed. He gestured to a wall of diagrams, outlines of bodies connected to wires, charts filled with numbers. "The system harvests them. Their minds, their bodies. Everything is recycled. Fuel for the city. Energy for its endless machines. You think this place runs on light and air? No. It runs on people. On those who outlive their limit." The weight of his words crashed over me. I felt the room close in, the air thick with unspoken horror. My thoughts reeled back to the man I had seen led into the White Hall. His pale face, his slow steps. He hadn't disappeared into nothing. He had been fed into the machine. The girl placed a trembling hand on my shoulder. Do you see now? Why no one questions the law? It's not just obedience, it's fear. Fear of what lies behind those doors. I turned back to the photographs, my heart hammering, and then I froze. Because among the countless faces, I saw one I recognized. A photograph, faded at the edges, but unmistakable. My wife. My children. Their smiles captured in a world I thought I'd lost forever. My knees buckled. No, it can't be. But the truth stared back at me from the wall. They, too, had been swallowed by this future. And suddenly, the nightmare wasn't just about me anymore. I couldn't breathe. My family's faces stared at me from the wall. Grainy photos salvaged from a machine's archive. My wife's smile. My children's eyes. Proof that they, too, had been pulled into this nightmare. Why? My voice cracked. Why are they here? They lived decades before this. This future. The tall man's gaze hardened. Because you are not here by chance. The system doesn't make mistakes. If you're standing in this time, it's because you were chosen, or because something went wrong. The girl stepped closer, her tone softer. He's right. The ministry controls life and death with absolute precision. They decide who transitions, when, how. But you're a rupture, a flaw in their perfect design. I shook my head. A flaw? No, I just fell asleep in my own bed and woke up here. The tall man raised a hand, silencing me. Exactly. You are the proof they cannot allow to exist. You've surpassed 30. You're alive. You shouldn't be. That alone shatters the illusion. The others in the room whispered among themselves, their voices trembling with a strange mixture of fear and hope. For them, my survival was both a miracle and a curse. One of the rebels, a woman with streaks of gray in her hair, the first truly aged face I'd seen, leaned forward. Don't you see? You are what we've prayed for. The world believes death at 30 is natural, inevitable. But you carry the evidence that it isn't. My chest tightened. I wanted to deny it, to run, to cling to the hope that this was all just a dream I'd wake from. But the photos on the wall were undeniable. My family was here. I was here. And if what they said was true, then the world itself was a lie. The tall man lowered his voice. The ministry doesn't destroy people at 30. They harvest them. Minds converted into data, bodies into fuel. That is how the city sustains its perfection. But the system can't risk disorder. That's why they designed the age limit, to keep the population obedient, unquestioning. And anyone who slips past the threshold, anyone like you, is a glitch they must erase. I swallowed hard. So, what do you want from me? The girl's eyes locked onto mine. To survive. And to show the world survival is possible. If you live, if people see you, the illusion breaks. That's the only way their empire falls. I felt the weight of their stares, the desperate hope pressed onto my shoulders. I hadn't asked for this. I wasn't a hero, I wasn't a leader. I was just a man who went to bed in one world and woke up in another. But in their eyes, I was something more. And then the walls shook. A low hum filled the chamber, rising into a deafening roar. Dust rained from the ceiling as lights flickered. The rebels scattered, grabbing weapons, makeshift shields. The tall man's face darkened. They found us. The girl's grip tightened on my arm. The enforcers. An explosion ripped through the steel door, sending shards flying across the room. Blinding white light poured in, and with it, figures in silver armor, faceless, their bodies glowing with neon veins. Their voices boomed in unison. Surrender the anomaly. Compliance ensures survival. Panic erupted. The rebels fought back, hurling projectiles, firing stolen weapons. Sparks lit the darkness as machines clashed with flesh. In the chaos, the girl pulled me toward a narrow passage in the rear wall. "Go! Now!" I stumbled after her, heart pounding, the roar of battle chasing us down the tunnel. Behind me, the rebels' shouts were drowned by metallic commands and the crack of energy weapons. We sprinted through the darkness, the ground trembling under each explosion. My mind reeled with the truth I had just heard, with the knowledge that I wasn't here by mistake. I wasn't just a man lost in time. I was a fracture in the system, and the system wanted me erased. The tunnel seemed endless, each step echoing with the thunder of war behind us. The girl's hand gripped mine tightly, her breath ragged, but her eyes were steady. She was determined to keep me alive, even as the world collapsed around us. But the future had already decided otherwise. We burst into a wider chamber, a cavern lit by pale light seeping through cracks in the ceiling. For a heartbeat, I thought we'd escaped. Then the shadows moved. Silver figures emerged from the walls like living statues, their armor gleaming with cold precision. Enforcers. Dozens of them. The girl froze, her face pale. "No." They closed us in. Voices boomed from all sides, mechanical and merciless. "Anomaly contained. Initiate retrieval." Before I could react, beams of blinding light pinned me in place. My body convulsed, every nerve screaming. I collapsed to my knees, gasping as the enforcers closed in. The girl fought. I saw her swing a stolen weapon, sparks flashing against the silver armor, but they didn't even flinch. In seconds, she was thrown aside, her cry swallowed by the roar of machines. Hands, cold, metallic, unyielding, seized my arms and dragged me forward. My protests, my struggles, meant nothing. I was a prisoner of the law of this world. They carried me upward, out of the tunnels, back into the glowing streets. Citizens parted silently as we passed, their blank faces reflecting the same indifference as before. No one dared to intervene. No one even whispered. To them, I wasn't a man. I was an error being deleted. At last, we reached it, the White Hall. It loomed larger than I remembered, its smooth surface glowing like bone under sterile light. The massive doors hissed open, and the air that poured out was colder than winter. Inside, everything was blinding. Walls, floors, ceilings, all pure white, pulsing faintly with energy. It felt less like a building and more like the inside of a machine. The enforcers released me at the threshold. My legs trembled as I staggered forward, compelled by forces I didn't understand. Ahead, a chair awaited. Not a throne, not a seat of comfort, but a clinical slab of steel surrounded by wires. I fought against it, clawing at the air, but the room itself seemed alive. Invisible currents pulled me toward the chair. I collapsed onto it, shackles snapping shut around my wrists and ankles. Above me, a vast screen flickered to life. Lines of data cascaded down. My face, my name, my age. The words glared back at me like a sentence. Age, 34. Status, terminate. I screamed, but the sound dissolved in the sterile hum. And then I saw it, my reflection in the polished glass before me. At first, it was just me, exhausted, terrified. But slowly, the eyes staring back began to glow. A faint neon shimmer spread across my irises, cold and mechanical until they no longer looked like mine. The transformation was happening. Not death, not exactly. Something else. The system wasn't erasing me. It was rewriting me. In that final moment of clarity, I understood. I hadn't escaped the future. I had become its property, its extension. My voice cracked, trembling between defiance and surrender. I thought I was just a guest in the future, but now I know. I've become part of it. The light consumed me. The last thing I saw was my own glowing eyes staring back, no longer human, no longer free, but bound forever to the law of 30. And then there was nothing.